What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the vlog. It's been a while, I know. So I'm just gonna quickly go over some stuff and what I've been up to, and then we'll roll right into the vlog. For those of you that don't know, I am not 21 yet. I am 19, I turn 20 next week. So pretty much that gives me pretty limited options to go play. So for the last 3.5 months or so, I've been on the road. I bought a car and I traveled all across the United States and Canada. Started in Calgary, and then I went to Montreal for about 6 weeks. Then I went to South Florida to play for a little while. That's where this vlog is from. The reason I haven't really been posting big vlogs like this is because a lot of those places don't allow you to film at the table. Luckily in Florida they do, so I'm really trying to start getting back, posting once a week, but I have been grinding. When I'm in LA, I really just grind online. So that's what I've been doing. I don't really have it easy. I gotta go pretty much just to Texas and Florida if I want to make poker vlogs, which is the plan for the rest of the year for me. But I know you guys have stuck with me and you guys have been watching my day in the life shorts. If you guys want to go check out, I'm way more active on Instagram. Post shorts, reels, and stories and stuff, so definitely go check that out. This was the start of about a week grind in Florida. I drove from Montreal to Florida to play at the Hard Rock, so that's gonna be this video, and I have a couple more after this. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's go. All right, everyone, welcome back. It has been a minute, but we are here in South Florida at the Hard Rock. We are playing 5-10 with a mandatory $25 straddle, and we're in for 2,500 bucks. I know why you guys are here, so I'm not going to make you wait any longer. 8-7 of diamonds is the first hand we get into. The hijack raises it up to 60 bucks, and early in the session here, I feel like I would mainly 3-bet, but calling is just fine. On the button, that's what I do. I put in the call, and the straddler is going to come along as well. We're off to a flop, and a warm welcome to the Hard Rock here. Ace 8-8, we flop trips on a pretty good board where our opponents could definitely have top pair a large portion of the time. The action checks over to me, and we're absolutely going to put out a bet here. Multi-way, we usually choose small sizing, so that's what I do. I bet out for $60, and only the hijack player is going to look me up here on the flop. We're going to go heads up to a turn here, which is the king of diamonds. It's very clean, and it's pretty good for us to get value from an ace, because now, regardless of his kicker, he's going to chop with all of my other ace-x holdings. When he checks it over to me, we definitely have to bet for value once more. Also a flush draw out there, which we could be betting with as well, which we'd want to choose a little bit of a larger sizing. Not massive, but 2/3 the size of the pot. I bet out for $225. The hijack thinks it over for a little while before sticking in the call. At this point in the hand, it's going to be pretty likely that we're just up against an ace-x holding here. And against that holding, we're going to be looking to get max value on a clean river, which is what we get here. The river card, 3 of diamonds, doesn't change a single thing about the hand. When he checks it over to me, I'm definitely going to be betting. I just don't know what size. If I had a bluff here, if I had a missed heart draw, I would have to go big. In a spot like this, you absolutely have to polarize because people don't really like to fold, especially in live poker. So when we have value, we want to bet big as well and get the maximum. So I bet just barely over the size of the pot for $800. I could even go bigger, but I'm not going to get too greedy this time. And he thinks it over for quite a while. It's pretty clear that I've put him in a pretty uncomfortable spot, and I'm just hoping maybe he can find the call, thinking I have a missed flush draw or something like that. After a while of thinking, he does decide to flick in the call. We show him the trips, and he mucks his cards. And yeah, that's exactly how we wanted that hand to play out. And good things are coming our way here early in the Hard Rock. We're going to move right along to the second hand. We are in the $25 straddle with Queen 7 offsuit. And it folds around to the player in the big blind who raises to $60. It's a bit of a small sizing. This hand shouldn't really be defending most of the time. You can definitely mix in some 3-bets here again with the offsuit combos, but facing the small sizing, this one's going to be a call for me this time. We're going to go heads up to a flop. Once again, we are flopping trips. Queen, Queen, 8. And yeah, we're running good here our first couple of hands. The big blind now is going to throw out a bet of $50, and now we have a decision whether to raise or call. I think I could go both ways here. I'm pretty indifferent about this one. We definitely want to slow play some of our Queen X, but I think we should leave that to the lower kickers. This one's right in the middle, but this time I decide to raise it up to 150 bucks. We do get looked up here on the turn by the big blind when he puts in the call, and we see an interesting turn card, the 9 of diamonds. It brings in Jack 10, and now also a hand like Pocket 9s has us beat. Those were a couple of the hands that we were beating on the flop. It's very possible he has a hand like Jacks, 10s, Kings, Aces. So when he checks it over to me on the turn here, I have a decision. This turn card adds a flush draw on board as well, so I think I could get by with a bet here on the turn and then decide on the river depending on what it brings. So I decided to go for some value here on the turn. I bet $325, and with the action back on the big blind, I'm hoping for a call and then we could see a clean river, but that's not what happens. He does not call, but he doesn't fold either. He's going to raise, the good old check raise to $900, and Man, this is just not a spot that we want to be in. Like I said, the turn can definitely bring in some hands that beat us now, like 9's full or Jack 10. And I really don't know what to do here. Our kicker is obviously not great, so we're still beat by King, Queen, Ace, Queen, Queen, Jack. Hands like that could definitely take this line here on the turn. So if I'm being honest, in the moment, I really wanted to fold. My gut was telling me to fold. But for some reason, I decided to stick around here. I mean, we have trips, and we could improve to a full house on the river to beat a hand like Jack 10. But yeah, I feel like this line in general is going to be not very bluff heavy, especially when he calls a raise on the flop. His range is going to be quite narrowed down at that point. So I think a fold here is probably a little bit better, even though we do have trips. But yeah, I decided to stick in the call, not loving it. The river card is definitely an interesting one. It's the Ace of Diamonds. It brings in a backdoor flush draw, and I don't really know how I feel about this one. Any sort of bluff you would have on the turn probably has a flush now, so we're pretty much beating nothing. The action is on the big blind here, and I'm just praying for a check. I think I have a pretty easy fold if he finds a shove. But yeah, he does decide to check, and I snap check it back, hoping we win. Maybe he has a random bluff, but he shows us the Queen 10. He has us out-kicked by one card. And yeah, that's going to scoop it. I thought it was a chop at first, but the 10 is going to play. Nice hand, man. Should have gone with my gut on the turn and folded trips. That's okay. We're going to shake it off and move on to the next hand. The good old Ace-King offsuit in the straddle. The under-the-gun player limps, and it folds around to me. We're going to raise it up big here, being out of position. I make it 125 bucks to go. The under-the-gun player puts in the call. We're going to a king-high flop. It's King, Queen, 3, Rainbow. We have top, and we are going to bet. I put out a small bet of $75, which is pretty typical sizing I would use on this board. The under the gun player puts in the call. Going now to a turn card, which is a little bit scary. It's the 9 of spades. It brings in backdoor flush draw, also some 2 pairs as well as Jack 10. So it's not the greatest card in the world, and being out of position here, you can never really go wrong with checking. It gives our opponent some rope to bluff, and it also will allow us to put in a big bet on the river and hopefully get looked up lighter than usual. So I start with a check, and then he bets out for $200. Pretty easy check call here, in my opinion. Check raising would be way overplaying our hand here. So that's what I do. I put in the check call, and the river card, Deuce of Spades. It brings in that backdoor flush draw, so I'm not super loving it, but we obviously still have top here. I'm not going to be leading into him on the river, though. I check it over, and he pretty quickly puts out a bigger bet of $475. Not huge, but not really to my liking. I'm just not sure if we can fold top here. We're beat by a couple hands, but seeing that he limped under the gun, he's probably not the strongest player, and he probably has a wider range than normal. That being said, there's definitely some random factor here. I'm not going to be folding top here in the 5-10 streets at the Hard Rock. So I put in the call, and he says he has a 3. I show him top, and we are going to scoop in an over $1,600 pot. Definitely happy with the line that I took on that hand. If I bet the turn, he probably would have just mucked. So we definitely made a bit more than we probably should have. Moving right along to the next hand, we have King Jack offsuit on the straddle. There's an action player in the cutoff who limps, and it folds over to me. This one's pretty close, but I think I want to bump this one up against a fun player. So I make it $125 just like last hand, and he puts in the call. Going off to a flop of Jack 5-4 all hearts. The action starts with me, obviously. On monotone boards here, you definitely have to play pretty cautiously. We have top pair with a good kicker, so we're feeling pretty good. But out of position here, we're going to start with a check. Our opponent decides to put out a small bet of $75. Like I said, on monotone boards, you definitely need to be cautious. There's definitely some runouts that we're not going to like. So I decided to just stick in the call here, and the turn card is now the 7 of spades. Brings in a couple straights that could be possible, but I'm not really too worried about it. So I check it over to my opponent once again, and he bets $200. And sitting here with top pair, with a good kicker so far, against a player who I know could definitely be out of line, we are definitely not going to be going anywhere. So I put in the call and pray for a good river, which we don't really get, but we do improve to 2 pair. It's going to be the King of Hearts. So I'm going to check it over to my opponent and hoping to not see a big bet here. He doesn't check, but he doesn't bet very big either. He decides to put in just a bet of $200. It's a quarter the size of the pot. And yeah, it's pretty gross here facing this bet size. Getting pretty incredible odds to make the call here, even though we're going to be beat a large portion of the time. But I think the odds are too good, and like I said, against a player who might just be getting out of line, there's too much of a random factor to fold here, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't know, probably a bad call on the river, but I stick it in, and we are going to lose this one to Queen 7 of hearts. So we flopped the goods, flopped the flush, and he got 3 streets out of us. Nice hand, man. Maybe not the best call on the river, but I'm okay with it. I feel like we've been playing all of these hands out of position. We are once again in the big blind. We look down at Ace King offsuit. The middle position player is going to raise it up to 60 bucks, and being out of position here, we're going to choose a sizing. A little over 4 times the bet. I'm going to make it $250 to go. The middle position player is going to call. So we're going to go heads up to the flop with a pretty great hand here, hoping for a good flop, and we definitely get some opportunity on Queen 10-4 with 2 diamonds. We have a gut shot to Broadway, as well as 2 overcards and a backdoor flush draw, so definitely a lot of equity we have on this flop. We're going to start with a small bet here out of position for $150. This is typically going to be a pretty good board for our range. A lot of our high card hands are going to connect, and we obviously still have the aces and kings. So we're going to bet out for 150 bucks, and he puts in the call. Hoping to find a turn card that will improve our hand, and we do. It's the King of Clubs. The interesting part about this card is that, yes, we improved a top pair, top kicker, but it's also going to improve a lot of our opponent's holdings if he has a hand like King Queen, King 10, Ace Jack, Jack 9. So there's definitely a lot of hands he can have in the middle Broadway section there. If we bet the turn here and he calls, we're not really sure if we're going to be value betting river or not. And once again, we are out of position. You can never really go wrong with checking because it's a lot easier for someone to slow play their hand in position. It's a bit similar to the last hand with ace king. So if the turn goes check, check, we can fire out a big value bet. Go into check call mode here on the turn and river. So that's what I do out of position. I start with a check on the turn. My opponent thinks about it for a little while before checking it back, hoping for a clean river, and we do get it. It's the 8 of hearts. Now it's time to go for some value. I'm feeling good about my hand. So I bet out for $600 into the $800 pot. This line also doesn't look too strong, and we can get lighter calls from a hand like Queen Jack or Ace Queen. I put out 6 black chips. I'm hoping to get looked up here, find some value on the river. My opponent goes into the tank for quite a while, but eventually he sticks in the call, and we show him the top. He mucks his cards, and once again we're finding a way to get some value here and just keep chugging away at this session. A $2,000 pot coming my way. These hands aren't really too exciting, but it's just kind of showing you what it's like to be grinding 510 in Florida. And I hope all of my evaluation is making sense to you guys. If there's any questions, I would love to answer it in the comments below. That's it for this session at the Hard Rock, but I'm going to mix this with the next day because there weren't too many interesting hands. So for this one, I was out for a profit of 120 bucks. It was an up and down session. We ended up a little bit in the green. We had to cut it short, but we came back the next day and we are in for the same game. Let's get it going. Here we are the next day, and the hand of the vlog so far has been Ace King. We've had a couple of pots with it already. This time of the suited variety, though. Ace King of diamonds in the small line, man. I can't seem to find a way to play a pot in position, but it seems like we're doing okay so far out of position. The button's going to start with a limp on this hand, and I'm going to raise it up to 125 bucks. The straddle player is going to come along as well as the button, so we're going to go 3 ways out of position to a flop, which is Jack 4, 5. 2 diamonds, pretty good flop for us here. 2 overs and the nut flush draw. Couldn't really ask for more here. Out of position to 2 other players, though, I'm going to start with a check. You guys know the theme if I'm out of position. You do a lot of checking, especially out of position to 2 players because you're up against 2 different ranges, so you have to be pretty passive. I'm going to go for a check here, looking to check raise most of the time. So I check, and the straddler puts in a bet of $150. And when the button decides that that's a good price for him as well and sticks in the call, this seems like a really great spot to go for a check raise, rep those over pairs that we might have. Obviously, our hand has a lot of equity, so if we do get called, we can definitely spike a gin card on the turn. Facing $150 and a call, we definitely need to size up here. Feeling pretty good about this spot. It's going to be difficult for our opponents to call, even with a weak jack here on the flop, let alone a turn barrel. So we're definitely going to be blasting this one off. Let's start it off with a check raise to $625. The straddler pretty quickly finds a fold, and now the action is over to the button. He thinks about it for a little while, but we don't get any action. I'm not too mad about it. Wouldn't have minded a call, wouldn't have minded a fold. Kind of wanted to see a diamond on the turn, but we're going to win a nice pot here uncontested with just ace high, so that is always a win. In the next one, we look down at aces, and we are on the button. This is just the dream. Folds over to me. I raise it up to $60, but we only get 1 customer. It's the straddle, and he puts in the call. Going to a flop here, which is 8-5-3 with 2 hearts. A low board, so we're obviously feeling pretty great here with our pocket aces. When he checks it over to me, I'm going to bet around half pot for $75. Could probably even size up a bit here on the flop, but I think half pot will do just fine. He pretty much snap called me on the flop, so yeah, we're going to the turn quickly, which is the deuce of diamonds. A brick. It brings in a couple wonky straights, but we double block ace 4, and if he has 6-4, he's going to get some money off me. When he checks, we're feeling good with our aces here. We need to protect against some draws. Also get value from 8x, 5x, so we're going to choose a sizing here. Pretty much the size of the pot. 3 black chips is $300. Our opponent shuffles his chips and looks at his cards again before picking up some chips and says, "I'm donating."
Oh yeah, it was thousands, yeah.
Donating.
Donating, he said, I know.
So happy to get a call here on the turn, but do you guys think he's actually donating, or did he turn a strong hand? Sometimes people could say things. Might be an angle shoot. He could have a set, he could have a straight. Let me know what you guys think. In the moment, I was a little bit suspicious for sure, but on a clean river, I would absolutely value bet the aces, but that's not really what we get. It's the 6 of diamonds. Any 4 is going to make a straight. It also brings in a lot of 2 pairs that the straddle could defend with. So when he checks it over to me, I don't see myself getting value here. I pretty quickly check it back, and sure enough, he was donating with the 9-7. He rivered the nuts, the gut shot on the river. But nice hand, man. You got to respect the gamble. And it paid off for him this time. He's going to scoop an $885 pot. Pretty unfortunate to lose to the 4 outer there, but what are we going to do? Moving on now, we are in the big blind with ace-jack offsuit. The middle position player raises to 50 bucks. The small blind puts in the call, and we are going to be squeezing. You got to be aggressive. You got to try to isolate, go heads up, or just take it down pre. Either or works. I'm going to be putting in a squeeze to 250 bucks. And we only get called by 1 player. It's the middle position player, so we're going to go heads up. Out of position once again to a flop in a 3-bet pot. Hoping to find a nice flop. We don't really get that. It's 10-10-4 with 2 clubs and a diamond. Pretty dry flop here. We do have some backdoor flush and straight draws. On these paired boards and 3-bet pots, we are going to bet our entire range. So ace-jack falls into that category. I'm going to bet out for 175 bucks. But the middle position player sticks around, puts in the call. Maybe we can find a club, an ace, a jack, or something on the turn here. But that's not what happens. It's the 5 of hearts, and I think for this one, we are just going to give up. I think we have a couple better barrels. We're going to have a hand, maybe even like 8-7 that has a straight draw. Also, all of the flush draws that we could barrel here. I would actually prefer to not have the jack of clubs, rather the spade or the heart variety. That way we block jack 10 suited. We do block ace 10 suited, but I think this one, I'm just going to give up here on the turn. So I check. He bets out for $400, and there's nothing else for me to do here but fold. Just move on to the next one. Don't let these kind of hands get in your head while you're playing. Sometimes you'll feel the need to just like bluff every single hand. And yeah, I've definitely been there, but that's something I've been working on. As you guys know, I definitely like to blast off. But I'm trying to be a little bit more combo selective with my holdings. This one could be a barrel in theory. I'm not even sure. But in game, I decided to just check, give this one up. And we're going to move on to the next hand. A couple more hands for this video. We get moved to another table. We look down at pocket 10s on the straddle. The button player raises to $75. The big blind calls. Sitting here with a great pair, we are going to 3-bet. And we're going to size up facing a $75 open and a call. Make it $350. If you guys are playing live poker, definitely make sure you're sizing up when you're out of position. It's very, very important. You can't give your opponents good price to call in position. The button folds, but the big blind player is going to get sticky with me here. He puts in the call. So we're going to go heads up in position to a flop. Can you believe it? We are in position. And even better, the flop comes queen 10-7. Like I mentioned earlier in this vlog, on monotone boards, you're pretty forced to just play cautious, bet small. That's just kind of the way you have to do things. So when he checks it over to me, I'm going to bet small here. 800 in the middle. I'm just going to bet $150 here. Feeling pretty good with my set, but he quickly folds. We're going to take down a pot. I'm not too mad about it. It's time for the last hand of the video, and I feel like there's going to be some people roasting me for this one. We have queens in the cutoff, and I raise it up to 60 bucks, and the button decides to 3-bet to $200. Now, it folds around to me, and yes, this is going to be a 4-bet almost all of the time. Probably all the time, 100%. But yeah, for some reason, I decided to just slow play this one and just call. Not sure why. I feel like it's because of the lack of 3-bets you see in live poker. So that typically you're going to be up against a bit of a stronger range. And I think it's actually okay in earlier positions, but I think cutoff versus button, I should just be 4-betting this 100% of the time. Regardless, I put in the call here, so go ahead and roast me in the comments if you think that that's a bad play. We're going to go heads up out of position to 8-4 deuce rainbow. Great flop for us. We are at the very, very top of our range pretty much. I check it over to him in flow, and he puts out a bet here. I'm going to be check raising this a large portion of the time. but he puts out a larger bet, $315 at 75% of the pot. And I think when you're facing larger bets, you're less inclined to check raise here. And when you face larger bets, the check raise percentage is definitely going to go down. So with my plan to check raise the flop, I think it has just changed into another passive line of check calling. The good news about just calling the flop here is he's not really going to put us on a hand like pocket queens or jacks. The bad news is that we could also use a bit of protection from a king or an ace, but that's just 2 cards, and we just have to pray that they don't come out here on the turn or river. If there is a clean run out on this hand, either we get stacked by aces or kings, we get max value from jacks or tens, or we catch a bluff. So there's definitely a lot of good things that could happen here if the board runs out clean for us. So I put in the call here on the flop, and we're going to go to a turn which is the 9 of clubs. Clean enough for me. I'm going to check it in flow here, give my opponent a chance to barrel on the turn, but he decides not to. He decides to just check it back. But the river is dreadful. It's the ace of clubs. Not what we were looking to see. We're beat by every single ace high hand he would have on the flop and turn, as well as some backdoor flush draws he would check on the turn. So not really loving it here anymore. My slow play kind of came back to bite me. And when I check it over to him, he puts out a bet of $750. And I did contemplate about hero calling the river, but our hand is just pretty bad to call. We would have to bank on him having a hand like king queen or king jack or queen jack. And having 2 queens in our hand is definitely going to reduce the combos of those bluffs. So it's really not a spot or a hand we want to be calling with here. Also, when he checks back the turn, it's extremely likely he's going to just have an ace high hand like ace jack, ace queen, or ace king. I would expect him to continue bluffing all the Broadway hands, king high and queen high hands on the turn. So when he takes this line, we're just going to be beat most of the time. That being said, I'm just going to let this one go. But like I said, you guys can roast me. And even better, he says he'll show for the vlog. And he shows the king, queen of diamonds. Well played, buddy. That was a perfect river for you to bluff on. Well played. Not a good river for me. And we are going to rack up and call it a session. Cashing out with $3,190 for a profit of $290 on this session, plus the 120 from last session. So a couple days, not huge profit, but we are grinding our way through the 510 streets here at the Hard Rock. That is going to be it for this video. Not the most exciting of sessions, but there was a couple interesting pots. If you guys have any questions on theory or poker or lifestyle or anything, I would love to answer that in the comments. But that's going to wrap it up. If you guys like these videos, click the subscribe button. You know the drill here on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, and I post a lot more daily stuff. But yeah, I will try to keep these vlogs once a week, keep grinding, and I'm excited for the future, man. Let's go.